It was supposed to be an ordinary Friday night. Riley Carter had no plans beyond a glass of cheap red wine, a bowl of half-stale popcorn, and the comforting chaos of a reality dating show she watched religiously without admitting it to anyone. She was in her softest sweatpants, her hair up in a messy bun, and the glow of her laptop screen was the only light in her cramped studio apartment when someone knocked on her door. It wasn't a polite knock. It was sharp, urgent, a series of quick, decisive raps that made her blink and glance at the clock. Almost 9 p.m. No one ever knocked on her door at 9 p.m. Her friends would have texted. Her landlord didn't do surprise visits. She hesitated, then got up, crossed the room, peeked through the peephole, and promptly forgot how to breathe. Addison Blake stood there like a scene out of a dream Riley had tried and failed to forget. Her boss. Her cold, untouchable, terrifyingly composed boss. In a black designer coat, heels that probably cost more than Riley's monthly rent, and hair pulled into an elegant, effortless twist. Draped over one arm was a crimson gown that shimmered faintly in the dim hallway light. In the other hand, a bottle of wine Riley recognized from the shelves of a store she never had the courage to enter. "Hi," Addison said, like she did this every Friday night. Riley opened the door on autopilot, stepping aside wordlessly as Addison walked in like she belonged there. "I know this is unexpected," Addison said, eyeing the tiny apartment with an unreadable expression before placing the wine carefully on the counter. "But I need a favor, and I need it now." Riley stared at her, still trying to process reality. "Is something wrong? Is the company—" No. Addison cut in, waving a hand. "This is personal." She turned to face her assistant fully, her tone softening in a way Riley had never heard at the office. "My parents are flying in for the Christmas Gala tomorrow. They're conservative, controlling. They think the company needs a more palatable face, a settled one. If I don't show up with a serious girlfriend on my arm, they'll push for a leadership change." Riley blinked. "So, you want me to help you find someone?" Addison's lips curled into something between amusement and disbelief.
"No, Riley.
"I want you." Riley felt like her brain short-circuited. "Me?" Addison stepped forward, holding up the red dress like an offering. "I need someone I can trust. Someone I know won't sell the story to page 6. Someone convincing. You're beautiful, competent, and no one would question it if we were together." "You think people would believe we're dating?" Riley asked, unable to hide the wobble in her voice. "Yes," Addison replied simply. "You've been by my side for a year. You know my schedule better than I do. You've held my coffee and my secrets. You look at me like I'm human when everyone else sees a machine. It would work. We'll arrive together, take some photos, smile for the cameras, and be seen. Then it's over. One night. I'll pay you well. Enough to cover your student debt, and then some." Riley's breath caught. The number Addison threw out was dizzying. But more dizzying was the way her boss looked at her now, not with corporate detachment, but with a flicker of vulnerability, like this actually mattered. Like Riley was more than just the convenient choice. "There's one condition," Addison added, her voice quieter. "You don't fall for me. This is a performance. Nothing more." Riley managed a laugh, even if it felt like swallowing glass.
"Right.
"Of course. No falling." Addison stepped closer, holding the dress between them. "Say yes." Riley should have said no. Should have remembered the rules, the imbalance, the danger of stepping into something she didn't fully understand. But her mouth betrayed her. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it." And just like that, the lines between fantasy and reality blurred, and Riley Carter stepped willingly into the fire. The red dress felt like it had teeth. Not literal ones, obviously, but Riley Carter was convinced it was alive, sentient, predatory, and tailored to expose every single insecurity she had about her body, her status, and her proximity to Addison Blake. She stood in the bathroom of Addison's penthouse, the guest bathroom, because of course Addison had more than one, and stared at her reflection in stunned silence. The fabric clung to her hips, skimmed over her thighs like liquid fire, dipped low enough at the back to make her shiver, and high enough at the front to toe the line between classy and devastating. It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever worn.
It was also terrifying.
"You're taking too long," Addison called from the other room, her voice smooth as velvet but laced with amusement. "Do I need to come undress you myself?" Riley's heart stopped. She wasn't sure if it was a joke or not. She wasn't sure which option terrified her more. She opened the door slowly and stepped out. Addison was seated on a cream-colored chaise lounge, scrolling through her phone, her legs crossed elegantly. When she looked up, something subtle shifted in her face. Barely a flinch, a flicker, a breath caught in her throat, but Riley saw it. For a fraction of a second, Addison Blake forgot how to speak. Then she stood, crossed the room slowly, eyes never leaving Riley's body. "Perfect," she murmured. "You'll make every woman in that room jealous." "And every man confused," Riley joked, trying to mask the heat crawling up her neck. Addison smiled, not her usual businesswoman smirk, but something warmer, more real. "That's the idea." Riley swallowed hard. "So, how exactly do we make this look convincing? Do we, I don't know, practice pretending to be girlfriends?" Addison arched an eyebrow. "Do you mean holding hands or making out in front of a mirror?" "Jesus Christ," Riley muttered, wishing the floor would open beneath her. "I meant, like, what's our story? How long have we been dating? How did we meet? What's our dynamic?" Addison's lips twitched like she was trying not to laugh. "You're right. We need consistency. My parents will ask questions. The board might too. So," she turned and walked toward her immaculate bar, pouring 2 glasses of something that shimmered amber in the light. "Let's create the fantasy." Riley sat on the edge of the couch, legs tucked under her, trying not to wrinkle the dress. Addison handed her a glass and sat beside her, close but not quite touching. "We met at a bookstore," Addison said, after a sip. "I was looking for something pretentious. You were buying a gift for your sister. We reached for the same copy of Jane Austen's letters." "That's oddly specific," Riley noted. "I like details," Addison replied, shrugging. "They sell the illusion." "Then you invited me for coffee. I declined at first, but you were persistent. I found your optimism irritatingly charming." "Sounds about right," Riley muttered. "And I suppose we had a magical first date?" "We did. You made me laugh. I hadn't laughed in weeks." Riley glanced at her, surprised by the softness in Addison's voice. "Is that real or part of the story?" Addison looked down at her glass, then at Riley. "Does it matter?" Riley didn't know how to answer that. They spent the next hour building a relationship out of thin air. First trip. First fight. Favorite inside joke. Addison insisted Riley did a terrible impression of Meryl Streep, which Riley vehemently denied. Addison confessed she had a weakness for peanut butter cups and old French movies. Every detail, every fabricated memory they wove together made it harder to remember that it wasn't real. At one point, Addison reached over and tucked a loose strand of Riley's hair behind her ear. It was so casual, so intimate, Riley forgot how to breathe. "You'll need to get used to me touching you," Addison said, eyes not leaving hers. "You okay with that?" Riley nodded.
Her voice had left the building.
"We should practice," Addison added, her tone lower now. "Walking in together.
Smiling.
Whispering like we have secrets." Riley stood and let Addison guide her gently across the room. Addison's hand found the small of her back, her fingers light but sure. "Now look at me like you're completely enamored," she said. Riley turned, their faces inches apart. She didn't have to fake the way her breath caught, the flutter behind her ribs, the ache blooming low in her stomach. "Convincing," Addison murmured. "You're a natural." Riley didn't answer. She was too busy trying not to lean forward and do something stupid. "And now," Addison whispered, "the final test." She stepped back, reached for her phone, and opened the camera. A photo. Something believable enough for social media. Riley exhaled slowly. "Okay." Addison stood beside her, wrapping an arm around her waist, pulling her close until their hips aligned, and Riley could smell her perfume, soft, expensive, completely disarming. Addison leaned in, her cheek brushing Riley's temple. Smile like you love me, she whispered. Riley did. And when the flash went off, Riley wasn't sure which part had been pretend. Riley Carter had never worn heels this high. Her toes were already threatening a full-blown rebellion, and they hadn't even reached the ballroom yet. But none of that mattered because Addison's hand was on her lower back, light but possessive, guiding her through the glittering marble halls of the Blake Corporation's annual Christmas Gala like she belonged here, like she was hers. The ballroom was a masterpiece of winter elegance. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above, white poinsettias, and evergreen garlands, laced with gold thread. Everyone was dressed in their December best, tailored tuxedos, floor-length gowns, velvet and silk and cold ambition. Cameras flashed. Champagne sparkled in fragile flutes. The moment Addison stepped through the doors, silence rippled through the room like a tide. She was magnetic in her emerald gown, the exact shade of envy. And Riley, in her now infamous red dress, stood beside her with every nerve alight. They were a vision. Ice and fire. Calculated elegance and reluctant warmth. A fantasy so polished it didn't just feel real, it looked inevitable. Addison leaned toward her, her breath brushing Riley's ear. Smile. They're already watching. Riley turned slightly, tilting her head toward Addison, letting her lips curve with practiced softness. It shouldn't have come this easily. But there was something about the way Addison's fingertips grazed her hip, the subtle curve of her smile, that made it feel less like a performance and more like a possibility. As they moved through the crowd, Addison introduced her to investors, board members, socialites Riley had only ever seen in glossy magazines. Addison never let go of her. Every time Riley tried to shift, Addie's hand found her again, shoulder, back, elbow, wrist, like she was anchoring them both. And maybe she was. They love you, Addison whispered between fake laughs and flutes of champagne. I should have thought of this sooner. You mean exploiting your assistant for PR? Riley teased. It's working. Addison glanced at her, something unreadable flickering behind her eyes. More than I expected. But then, everything shifted. A new energy swept into the room, the kind that didn't announce itself loudly, but still drew attention like gravity. Riley followed Addison's gaze, and immediately understood. The woman was tall, confident, striking in a tailored black jumpsuit and blood-red lipstick. She walked like she owned every room and maybe had in the past. She didn't look at anyone, only at Addison. That's her, isn't it? Riley asked, trying to keep her voice even. Sabrina. Addison didn't answer right away. Her jaw tightened. She's not supposed to be here. Sabrina approached with the ease of someone who knew she could interrupt any moment, any conversation, and take center stage. She didn't even glance at Riley. Addie. Addison stiffened. Sabrina. You look beautiful, she said, ignoring Riley entirely. More than beautiful. I've missed you. This isn't the time, Addison said coolly. But Riley could see the tension now. Tight shoulders, clenched jaw, eyes that flickered with something Riley hadn't seen before. Not vulnerability. Not quite. But something haunted. I saw the post, Sabrina said, her gaze finally sliding toward Riley. Cute. Very believable. You always were good at appearances. Riley's heart slammed. She turned to Addison. You posted it? My assistant did, Addison said quietly. It needed to go up before we arrived. Timing is everything. Riley didn't know what she felt. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't want to name it. Love what you've seen so far, and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories. It burned too much. Sabrina smiled with calculated sweetness. Well, congratulations. I'm sure this one's different. She turned to leave but paused, letting her fingers brush Addison's wrist. Intimate, familiar. Riley saw red. She didn't think. She just acted. She stepped forward, slipping her arm around Addison's waist and pulling her in, closer than they'd been all night. Actually, Riley said, voice sweet and sharp like champagne laced with arsenic. She is different. And I'm not going anywhere. Addison didn't move away. She didn't flinch. She just looked at Riley like she was seeing her for the first time. Sabrina laughed once, then walked away, disappearing into the crowd like a shadow melting into the dark. Riley's heart was pounding. She didn't know what she'd just done, or why it felt like her blood was on fire. Addison turned to her, eyebrows raised. That was unexpected. I panicked, Riley said. Or maybe I didn't. Addison studied her for a long moment. Jealousy looks good on you. Shut up.
No, really.
It's flattering. You're unbearable. Addison leaned in again, her voice low. But you're not faking anymore, are you? Riley wanted to lie. She wanted to smirk and brush it off. But her silence said everything. Addison stepped back, eyes flicking to her phone.
Oh.
Her expression shifted again, subtle, unreadable. Then she handed the phone to Riley. We just broke the internet. Riley stared at the screen. Their photo. The one from Addison's penthouse, the one with Riley smiling like she loved her, was everywhere. Thousands of likes. Hundreds of comments. Gossip sites were already spinning theories. CEO Addison Blake soft launches girlfriend at Christmas Gala. Who is the mystery woman in red? Power couple of the year? Riley's throat dried. This is viral. Addison nodded slowly. And irreversible. And in that moment, under a chandelier of glass snowflakes and the weight of 1,000 watching eyes, Riley Carter realized one terrifying, inescapable thing. She hadn't just lost control of the narrative. She was losing control of her heart. Riley Carter woke up to 3 missed calls, 9 texts, and the sinking feeling of having crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The first message was from her college roommate. The second was from her ex-girlfriend. The third was from someone she barely knew in high school and hadn't spoken to in 8 years. Girl, is that you with Addison Blake? She blinked, sat up, and unlocked her phone with trembling fingers. The photo, the one from Addison's penthouse, the one where her smile had been far too genuine to be pretend, was everywhere. Headlines, Twitter threads, Instagram fan accounts. Even TikTok edits were already cropping up, her awkward laugh paired with Addison's icy stare, the perfect opposites attract formula for the internet to eat up. She couldn't breathe. She hadn't realized what viral really meant until now. Her stomach flipped when she saw that her own profile had been tagged in gossip articles, flooded with followers and buried under comments ranging from heart-eyed emojis to brutal speculations about who she was, where she came from, and whether she was good enough for someone like Addison Blake. She was still processing all of that when her phone lit up with a message from Addison herself. Meet me at the office.
Now.
It wasn't a request. 2 hours later, Riley stepped into Addison's top-floor suite wearing the exact same coat she'd worn every day since November, with circles under her eyes and a pulse that hadn't slowed down since breakfast. Addison stood behind her desk, arms crossed, lips tight. The window behind her showed a breathtaking skyline, but it was nothing compared to the storm brewing in her eyes. We have a problem, Addison said, sliding her phone across the desk. On the screen was an email from the PR team, then another from the board, then a draft of an official company statement. They're expecting clarification. And soon. Clarification? Riley echoed, barely able to keep up. Are they upset? Not exactly, Addison said. Some are delighted. We look progressive. Human. Grounded. But others, well, they think this is a distraction. An image stunt that could backfire if it goes wrong. Which it will, Riley mumbled. Addison raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? It will go wrong, Riley repeated. Because I'm not media trained. I'm not from your world. I'm not some elite PR darling who knows how to spin a fake relationship into a fairy tale. Addison stepped forward, her voice softer now. You're not replaceable either. Riley looked up.
What?
They offered me someone else, Addison said, almost like it pained her. An actress. Someone more manageable. I said no.
Why?
Because I trust you. That silenced Riley more effectively than any order could have. This is still a performance, Addison added, but her voice was different now. But if we're going to keep doing this, I need you to be okay with the spotlight, with being seen, with being mine, even if only on paper. That last part stung more than it should have. Riley nodded slowly. Okay, so what's the plan? Over the next hour, they crafted the narrative. Addison's assistant turned lover. A slow-burn romance hidden in the shadows of boardrooms and late-night strategy meetings. Photos would continue to be posted. Public appearances planned. The gala had only been the beginning. And through it all, Addison was calm.
Composed.
In control. Except when she looked at Riley. Then, for the briefest moments, something cracked through. A glance too long. A laugh too real. A silence too loaded. They had lunch in Addison's office, Riley's favorite salad, already ordered, already waiting. When Riley asked how she remembered, Addison shrugged and said, "You're easy to read." That wasn't true. Not at all. Addison made Riley feel like she was shattering glass every time she got too close. And still, she wanted to fall. The day blurred into night, and just as Riley was packing up to leave, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen.
Mom.
Her breath hitched. Hello. Riley and Carter. Came the voice of her mother, full of restrained curiosity and poorly veiled excitement. Is it true? Riley winced. Is what true? Don't play coy with me, young lady. I saw the photo.
Your aunt sent it to me.
She thought it was edited. I told her it looked pretty damn real. Is it her? The CEO? The one you always said was terrifyingly beautiful? Oh my God, Riley muttered, shooting a look toward Addison, who was pretending not to listen. It's complicated. Well, uncomplicated it, because your father and I would love to meet her. We're doing a small Christmas Eve dinner. Nothing big. Just family. Bring her. Riley froze. What? It's been years since you brought someone home, her mother said, voice softening. I'm not pressuring you, but if she's important to you. Riley didn't know what to say. She promised to think about it, hung up, and stood in complete silence for nearly a full minute. That sounded intense, Addison said finally. That was my mom, Riley replied, turning slowly.
They want to meet you.
Addison blinked. Excuse me? They saw the photo. They're asking me to bring you to Christmas Eve dinner. Addison looked like someone had just asked her to perform surgery in front of a live audience. Absolutely not. Why not? Riley challenged, voice cracking with emotion she hadn't expected. You asked me to fake it for you. I did. I stood in heels I couldn't walk in. I smiled next to your ex. I let the whole world believe I was something I'm not. And now they believe it too. My parents. My family. So, I'm asking you, just once, to fake it for me. Addison didn't speak. Not right away. She just stared at Riley with something like surprise or regret. Or maybe fear. I'm not good at those things, she said finally. Family. Small talk. Warmth. I don't need you to be perfect, Riley said softly. I just need you to show up. And just like that, the script flipped. The CEO became the girlfriend. And Addison Blake was no longer the one asking for a favor. She was the one being asked to step into someone else's world. Addison Blake had never been in a house that smelled like cinnamon and floor polish at the same time. The second she stepped through the front door of the Carter residence, something hit her chest, something she couldn't name, warm and unfamiliar, like walking into a memory that didn't belong to her. There were string lights taped to the corners of the ceiling, a plastic Christmas tree in the living room with ornaments clearly handmade by children, and the distant sound of laughter and clinking dishes coming from the kitchen. Riley stood beside her, visibly tense, cheeks flushed from the cold or maybe from nerves. They're a lot, she whispered, brushing her hair behind her ear. Addison arched an eyebrow. Define a lot.
Nosy. Loud.
Affectionate. My mother will try to feed you until you explode. My father will interrogate you. My sister will probably flirt with you. Wonderful, Addison said dryly, but her fingers brushed against Riley's ever so lightly, grounding her. Let's go meet the wolves. They stepped into the living room together, hand in hand, and the moment was cinematic in a way Addison didn't expect. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Riley's mother, a woman with laugh lines and a permanent air of holiday cheer, dropped her dish towel and let out a gasp. "You're real." "Hi, Mrs. Carter," Addison said, polite, calm, and utterly out of her element. "I'm Addison." "Oh, honey, I know who you are," her mother said, rushing forward and grabbing both of Addison's hands like they'd known each other for years. "I've read about you in Forbes. My God, you're even prettier in person.
Look at you.
What are you, a model and a CEO?" Addison blinked.
No.
"Just a CEO." "That's enough," said a voice from the back, and Riley's father entered, tall, slightly intimidating in his plaid sweater, but with a twinkle in his eye. "So you're the one dating our Riley?" Addison straightened. "Yes, sir. I am." He studied her for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he grinned.
Good.
"She deserves someone who'll look at her the way you did when you walked in." Riley turned bright red. Addison didn't say a word, but her grip on Riley's hand tightened just a little. Introductions flew by in a blur: siblings, cousins, an overly curious aunt who asked about their sex life within the first 20 minutes and was immediately shushed by Riley's horrified gasp. But through it all, Addison remained composed, charming, and shockingly sweet. She complimented the decorations. She asked Riley's niece what her favorite Christmas movie was. She helped set the table without being asked. And when Mrs. Carter insisted she try the pecan pie, Addison didn't just take a bite. She asked for the recipe. Riley watched all of it unfold with stunned disbelief. The Addison she knew was sharp edges, impossible standards, cold coffee, and colder glares. But here, surrounded by family photos and casserole dishes and homemade paper snowflakes, Addison softened. Not dramatically, not performatively, but genuinely. When Riley's younger cousin asked how they met, Addison didn't recite the fake story they'd practiced. She smiled at Riley instead and said, "She walked into my life like a hurricane. I had no choice but to notice her." Riley nearly dropped her fork. Later, while the adults drank cider and debated politics in the living room, Riley and Addison found themselves alone in the hallway, beside a slightly crooked family portrait from 10 years ago. "You're good at this," Riley said, still not quite believing it. "Pretending?" Addison asked, voice low.
No.
"Being human." Addison laughed under her breath, but it wasn't mocking. It was soft, almost shy. "It's easier when I'm not being watched by shareholders." "You're still being watched," Riley said, nodding toward the kitchen, where her mother was definitely spying behind a curtain. Addison smiled. "She likes me. They all like you. My sister asked if you have a clone." "You sound surprised." "I am surprised. You hate small talk. You hate people." "I don't hate people," Addison corrected gently. "I just rarely like them." Riley looked at her. "And, do you like my family?" Addison's expression changed, barely, but enough. "I like you." Riley's breath caught. "You're not pretending right now, are you?" Addison didn't answer, but her hand reached out, fingers brushing against Riley's wrist. Not possessively. Not like a performance. Just a touch. Just presence. "Come outside with me," Addison said suddenly. "I need air." They slipped out the front door and into the crisp December night. The sky was velvet dark, and the street was quiet except for the distant hum of someone playing Christmas music. Addison leaned against the porch railing, her breath visible in the cold, her arms folded tightly over her coat. "This is what it's like?" she asked after a moment. What's like?" "Family. Home. Feeling like you belong somewhere, even when you're not perfect." Riley stepped closer.
Yeah.
"This is what it's like." Addison looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in her eyes unraveled, like a thread pulled loose, like a woman cracking under the weight of everything she wasn't allowed to feel. "I think I'm terrible at this," she whispered. "You're not. I don't know how to do normal. Or soft. Or real." "You're doing it right now," Riley said, and her voice trembled. Addison reached up, fingers lightly brushing Riley's cheek. The touch was so tender, so unguarded, it made Riley ache. "You make it easier," Addison murmured. And Riley, suddenly breathless, said the only thing that felt true. Then stay a little longer. Addison did. Addison Blake had survived boardroom battles, hostile takeovers, and interviews with journalists who tried to make her bleed with their questions. She'd stood across from billionaires and politicians and walked away unscathed. But nothing had prepared her for the moment she sat alone in the back seat of her Blacktown car the morning after Christmas Eve and realized she didn't want to leave. Not the Carter house. Not Riley. Not the cinnamon smell or the fake snow in the window or the worn kitchen table where she'd been offered seconds of mashed potatoes like she was already part of the family. She hadn't wanted to let go of that world. Of Riley. She was still wearing the scarf Riley's mother had wrapped around her neck before they said goodbye. It smelled faintly of lavender and wood smoke and something she couldn't name. Something like belonging. Her phone buzzed beside her. She knew it was from the office before even looking. Meetings. Strategy updates. Reports. A new press cycle fueled by their holiday romance. She should have felt triumphant. The plan was working. The media couldn't get enough. The fake relationship had humanized her in ways 1,000 interviews never could. She'd become something the public adored. Powerful, yes, but now also relatable. And Riley, sweet, stammering, devastatingly genuine Riley, was the perfect match in the public eye. Opposites attract. Beauty and brains. The CEO and the girl next door. It was a PR miracle, but none of it felt like a win. Not anymore. Addison leaned her head back against the seat, closing her eyes. She could still feel Riley's fingers brushing hers under the dinner table. Still hear her laugh echoing off the walls of a too-small living room. Still see the way her eyes softened every time Addison did something slightly less terrifying than usual. And for the first time in years, Addison felt like a stranger in her own skin. At the same time, across town, Riley Carter was lying awake in bed, unable to stop replaying the night. The way Addison had charmed her mother without effort. The way she'd helped her niece fix the wings on a paper angel. The way she'd looked on the porch under the fairy lights, her walls down, her voice low and aching. Riley had never seen her like that. She wasn't sure anyone had. And that terrified her. Because she was falling. Fast. Hard. And there was still a clock ticking on all of this. The deal was temporary. The performance had a deadline. Eventually, the curtain would fall, and Riley didn't know if she'd survive what came after. She was halfway through writing a message to Addison when her phone buzzed with an incoming call. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Riley Carter, said a chipper, too-polished voice. This is Chelsea from the Hearts and Power Awards Committee. We're thrilled to inform you that you and Addison Blake have been selected to present the Woman of the Year award at our televised New Year's Eve Gala. Riley sat up straight. I'm sorry, what? It'll be broadcast live, of course. We've already confirmed your attendance with Ms. Blake's assistant. We'll be sending over wardrobe options, a hair and makeup team, and a car. Oh, and just a heads up, we may ask a few brief personal questions on stage. Nothing invasive, just a little about your love story. The call ended before Riley could ask anything else. Her heart was in her throat. An awards gala. National television. Questions about their love story. She barely had time to panic before Addison texted, Come to my place. Tonight. We need to rehearse. Riley arrived at the penthouse after dark, her breath fogging the air, nerves twisting inside her like vines. Addison opened the door, wearing soft black loungewear and no makeup. It was almost disarming how casual she looked, how real. So, Riley said, stepping inside, we're going public again. Bigger this time. Apparently the universe has decided we're everyone's favorite love story, Addison said flatly, handing her a glass of wine. How romantic. They're going to ask us about each other, Riley said, walking to the window. The city lights glittered like 1,000 tiny secrets below. And we're going to lie to millions of people. Not lie, Addison corrected, standing beside her. Curate. Riley turned to look at her. Can you do that? Keep curating when it starts to feel like something else. Addison's expression didn't change, but her throat worked as she swallowed. Can you? Riley didn't answer. She couldn't. Addison set her glass down. We'll rehearse tomorrow. Tonight, we need to work on something else.
What?
Touch, Addison said simply. We need to look natural, familiar, intimate. You tense every time I put my arm around you. That's because you do it like a CEO giving a TED Talk, Riley snapped, too raw to pretend. Addison blinked, then laughed, a real laugh, low and surprised. Okay.
Fair.
Show me how it's supposed to feel. Riley stepped forward slowly, heart hammering. She lifted a hand and brushed Addison's collarbone lightly, letting her fingers linger. You don't grab, Addie. You invite. Addison's breath caught at the nickname. Riley moved closer, placing a hand gently on Addison's hip. You don't own the space. You share it. Addison's eyes darkened. And when I want to kiss you? Then you don't announce it like it's a business merger. Their bodies were close now, barely inches. Addison's hand found the curve of Riley's waist. Then what? Riley's voice was barely a whisper. Then you just feel it. And in that second, the air changed. The act dropped. There was no audience, no cameras, no PR strategy, only breath, only heat, only them. Addison leaned in slowly, painfully, like she was giving Riley time to run. She didn't. Their lips brushed, once, soft, uncertain. Then again.
Deeper.
Hungrier. And Riley melted. Into her. Against her. Around her. It wasn't a kiss for the cameras. It wasn't for the contract. It was desperate and tender and impossibly real. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Addison's forehead rested against Riley's. We weren't supposed to do that, she whispered. I know. This wasn't part of the plan. I know. Addison pulled back just enough to look at her. So, what do we do now? Riley reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers slowly, deliberately. We keep pretending, she said softly, until it's not pretending anymore. Addison didn't answer, but she didn't let go. The studio lights were blinding. The makeup team had warned them, don't look straight into the spotlights, just follow your mark, keep smiling, and whatever happens, don't break character. But the truth was, Riley Carter couldn't see a damn thing except Addison. She stood beside her on the sleek black stage, wrapped in a navy gown that shimmered under the lights like midnight on water, one hand casually placed at the small of Riley's back. 100 cameras pointed their way. Hundreds more watched from behind screens. The Hearts and Power New Year's Eve Gala was being broadcast live to over 3 million viewers. They were here to present the Woman of the Year award. A symbolic, PR-heavy appearance. Short, harmless. But nothing about it felt harmless anymore. Because Riley could still feel the echo of Addison's kiss on her lips. She could still feel the way Addison's fingers had trembled slightly against her skin last night, how she'd pulled Riley in like she didn't want to let her go. And now they were here, standing on a stage in front of the world, pretending to be something they hadn't fully defined. Maybe pretending wasn't even the word anymore. You look stunning, Addison whispered, leaning in for the cameras. Riley smiled, the warmth in her chest blooming despite the nerves. You're just saying that because we're live. I'm saying it because it's true. Their microphones picked up none of it, of course. Just soft glances, subtle touches. To the world, they looked like a polished, powerful couple with a picture-perfect romance. Addison turned slightly, giving her best poised smile to the host on stage. He was older, charming in a corporate kind of way, and clearly delighted to have two of the most buzzed-about women in the country standing beside him. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, before we present tonight's honoree, we have a few questions for our favorite couple, Ms. Blake and Ms. Carter. Riley blinked. Addison stiffened just enough for Riley to notice. This hadn't been part of the script. You've quickly become America's sweethearts, the host continued, laughing lightly. And the internet's most beloved power couple. I think everyone watching at home is wondering the same thing. How did the two of you meet? Riley's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Addison's hand gently squeezed her waist. Reassurance, a signal, or maybe both. Addison took the mic. We met at the office. she said smoothly. Riley was my assistant, but she very quickly became a lot more than that. Her voice was even, her expression confident. But Riley could see the storm underneath it. She challenged me, Addison continued. Not in meetings or reports, but in ways that mattered. She reminded me I was human, and that terrified me. The host chuckled. So she softened the heart of the Ice Queen? Addison's eyes flicked toward Riley, and for a second, something fierce and vulnerable passed between them. Yes, she said, and the room fell quiet. She did. Riley forgot how to stand, forgot how to breathe. It wasn't a line. It wasn't rehearsed. She could tell by the way Addison looked at her, like the cameras had vanished, like there was no one else in the world. That's beautiful, the host said, clearing his throat. And I have to ask, what's next for the two of you? Addison hesitated. Riley felt the shift. The moment stretched. For half a second, she thought Addison would default to the PR-safe answer. We're taking it day by day. We're just enjoying the holidays. It's still new. But instead, Addison stepped closer. I don't know what's next, she said, her voice low but steady. I just know I don't want it to end. The audience gasped softly. The cameras caught it all. The way Riley's eyes widened, the way her lips parted like she was about to cry or kiss her or both. The host, visibly surprised, laughed awkwardly and motioned for the cue card. Well, if that isn't the quote of the night. Thank you, Ms. Blake. Now, let's get to the award. The rest was a blur. Applause. A tearful speech from the honoree. Flashing cameras. People whispering as Addison and Riley exited the stage hand in hand. Once backstage, Addison dropped the act, or tried to. She let go of Riley's hand and took a step back, her mask slipping. That wasn't supposed to happen, she muttered. Then why did it? Riley asked, still dazed. You said you didn't want it to end. Addison ran a hand through her hair, visibly shaken. I panicked. I didn't know what to say. You said the truth. Or maybe I said what they wanted to hear. Riley's chest tightened. Is that what this still is? For you? A performance? Addison didn't answer. A producer waved them toward the exit. The car was waiting. Paparazzi outside. They had seconds before the world saw them again. Riley grabbed Addison's hand. Addie. The nickname, spoken softly, pulled Addison back to her. You can tell me the truth, Riley said. Just me. No cameras. No press. Just me. Addison looked at her for a long time. Then finally, almost too quietly to hear, she whispered, I don't know how to stop pretending. Because I don't know where the pretending ends and where you begin. Riley stepped forward. I begin here. She placed Addison's hand over her own heart. Right here. And I'm not pretending anymore. Addison's breath caught. But before either of them could say anything else, the stage manager opened the door to the outside world. The flash of cameras greeted them instantly. Addison reached for Riley's hand again. Not for the press, not for the image, but because she needed to. And Riley held on. The air inside Addison's penthouse felt heavier than usual, like it had absorbed every word that hadn't been said in the car ride home, every breath they didn't take backstage, every look that lingered too long but ended too soon. Riley stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, arms folded, trying to steady the storm inside her chest. The city sprawled below, loud and alive, but in here it was just silence and tension and something that hurt too much to name. Addison was still by the door, her coat half off, her hands trembling slightly as she set her phone down on the console table. She hadn't spoken a word since they left the gala. Not about what she'd said on stage. Not about the way she'd looked at Riley like she was the only thing keeping her afloat. Say something, Riley whispered without turning around. Addison didn't move. Anything, Addie. Just don't shut down again. I don't know what to say, Addison replied, her voice quiet, frayed around the edges. I'm still trying to understand what I did. What I meant. Riley turned then, slowly, facing her. You said you didn't want this to end. Addison met her gaze. I didn't lie. Then, why does it feel like you've been running from that moment ever since? Because I don't know how to live in it, Addison said, stepping closer. I know how to plan, how to project, how to make the world believe I have everything under control. But this, you, us, none of it fits the plan. Maybe that's the point, Riley said. Maybe it's not supposed to. And what if I ruin it? Addison's voice cracked. What if I ruin you? You won't. You don't know that. Riley stepped into her space, slowly, carefully, like approaching a wild creature. I trust you, even when you don't trust yourself. Addison's breath hitched. She reached out, almost unconsciously, her fingers brushing Riley's wrist, then curling around it like it was the only tether to something real. And maybe it was. Riley leaned in, forehead resting against Addison's. Tell me the truth, she whispered. Just once. Do you want this? Not the story, not the spotlight.
Me.
Addison exhaled shakily. Yes. It wasn't loud. It wasn't certain. But it was real. Then stop pretending you don't, Riley said. Addison's hands came up to frame Riley's face, her thumbs brushing her cheeks like she was afraid she might disappear. Their lips met again, slower this time, less fire and more ache, like they were kissing through every fear they hadn't voiced. And it was perfect. Until the doorbell rang. They both froze. Addison stepped back, instantly slipping back into the CEO mask she wore like armor. I'm not expecting anyone, she said, walking toward the door. Riley followed, heart still racing. Addison opened the door and froze. Sabrina. Riley's stomach dropped. The woman standing there wore a coat the color of storm clouds and a look of someone who didn't wait for permission to enter. I need to talk to you, she said, brushing past Addison and stepping inside like she still belonged here. It's urgent. Now's not a good time, Addison said sharply. It wasn't a good time at the gala either, but that didn't stop you from parading your fake girlfriend in front of half the country. Riley flinched. I'm not fake. Aren't you? Sabrina turned to face her, eyes cold and appraising. You think I don't know what this is? You think Addison just happened to fall in love with her assistant right after the board threatened to pull her power? Please. Addison stepped between them. Stop. You don't get to come into my home and insult her. I'm not here to fight, Sabrina said, softer now. I'm here to warn you. The board's talking. They think this romance is a distraction, a stunt, and someone's leaking internal memos to the press. Riley's eyes widened. What? There's a narrative building, Sabrina continued. One that paints you as manipulative. That you used Riley for public sympathy. That you're emotionally unstable. That's ridiculous, Riley said, stepping forward. She's the most composed person I've ever met. Tell that to the shareholders who saw her choke on live television. Addison's jaw clenched. Get out. Sabrina looked at her for a long, tense moment. Then she nodded.
Fine.
Just don't say I didn't try to help. She walked out, closing the door behind her with a quiet finality. The silence that followed was deafening. Addison turned away, walking toward the window, her posture stiff, her hands clenched into fists.
She's lying, Riley said.
Or twisting something. It doesn't matter, Addison replied, her voice hollow. They'll believe whatever story protects their money. Then we tell the truth. Addison laughed bitterly. The truth? That I blackmailed my assistant into fake dating me and then accidentally fell in love with her. Riley's heart stopped. Addison froze. Neither of them moved for a long moment. You said it, Riley whispered. Not on purpose, Addison muttered. But you did. Addison turned slowly. Do you want me to take it back? No, Riley said. I want you to mean it. Addison crossed the room in 2 steps. I do mean it. I just don't know how to love someone without destroying everything good. Then learn. With me. Addison stared at her like she was the only safe thing left in the world. And maybe, just maybe, she was. Addison Blake had always known how to stay ahead of a storm. She was trained for it, built for it, conditioned to anticipate the shift in air pressure before the thunder rolled in. But this was different. The storm was already inside her, tearing through everything she'd worked so hard to keep untouched, her image, her position, her heart. And Riley Carter was the eye of it. Calm and steady and impossibly soft in a world that didn't allow softness. The board had gone silent. Too silent. Her PR team was dodging questions. Sabrina's warning hadn't been paranoia. It had been a preview. The media was circling, sniffing for weakness. And they'd found it. It wasn't the fake relationship. It wasn't even the kiss on live TV. It was Riley. They were going after her. Addison sat at her desk, the same one that had once made her feel powerful, untouchable. Now it felt like a cage. Her assistant, not Riley, not anymore, never again, entered with a pale expression and handed her a folder without speaking. Addison opened it, and the world stopped. Exclusive, Addison Blake's girlfriend has a dark past. Secrets from Riley Carter's college years revealed. Photos. Quotes. A drunk driving charge from when Riley was 19 that had been expunged. A medical leave from her final semester. Therapy records that should have never been leaked. Addison's fingers shook as she turned each page. It was a violation. A hit piece. A weapon. It goes live tomorrow morning, her assistant whispered. They're saying an anonymous source leaked it. But we know where it came from. Addison didn't need to ask. Sabrina. Or someone she used to trust. Someone who'd been waiting for the right moment to pull the rug out from under her. Riley doesn't know yet, the assistant added. We wanted to tell you first. Addison stood. Cancel my meetings. Clear my schedule. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes. She found Riley in the rooftop garden of the building, curled up on a bench under a blanket she'd stolen from Addison's office weeks ago. The skyline shimmered behind her, and for a second, Addison wished they were anywhere else. Just the two of them. No headlines. No past. No lies. Hey, Riley said, looking up, smiling faintly. You disappear after telling someone you love them, and then just show up on a rooftop? That's classic lesbian chaos. Addison didn't smile. She sat beside her, careful, quiet. Riley turned. What is it? Addison looked straight ahead. Something's coming out.
Tomorrow. About you.
Riley's body went rigid. What do you mean about me? Addison didn't answer right away. She pulled the folder from her coat and handed it over. Riley opened it with trembling fingers. The silence between them thickened, stretched, threatened to snap. Riley's eyes skimmed faster and faster, and when she got to the third page, she stopped breathing. They got my therapy records, she whispered. How the hell? They're calling it an anonymous source. But it's about me.
Not you.
Why? Addison looked at her then, eyes fierce and broken. Because you're the easiest way to get to me. Riley stood up, pacing now, the blanket falling to the ground. They're going to crucify me. My family's going to see this. My students, God, Addison, what if I never get a teaching position again? Addison stood too, stepping closer. I can stop it.
How?
If I step down. Riley blinked. What? If I resign, the story dies. The pressure vanishes. The board gets what it wants, a sanitized, drama-free company. The media moves on. They won't care about you anymore. Because I'll be the story. You're not serious. I am. Addie. Riley's voice cracked. You can't do that. I can. And I will. If it means protecting you. Riley shook her head, eyes wide with disbelief.
No.
That's not what I want. That's not what we are. You don't get to choose for me. I'm not choosing for you. I'm choosing for me. I've made mistakes, Riley. I dragged you into something messy and public and dangerous. I thought I could control it. I thought I could protect you, but all I've done is hurt you. You haven't hurt me, Riley said, stepping forward, her voice shaking with anger and fear. You made me feel seen. Wanted.
Loved.
You think you're protecting me by pushing me away?
That's not love, Addie.
That's fear. Addison looked down. Her hands were clenched at her sides. I don't know how to do this. Then learn. Like I did. Like I'm still doing. Addison looked at her then, really looked at her, and what Riley saw wasn't the CEO. It wasn't the woman with the cold stare and sharp tongue. It was the girl underneath it all, the one who had been told vulnerability was weakness, that emotions were liabilities, that love was a risk not worth taking. Riley reached out and placed her hand over Addison's heart. "You're allowed to want something that doesn't come with a guarantee." Addison's voice broke. "I don't want to lose you." "Then don't. They're going to tear you apart. Let them try." And then, suddenly, Addison kissed her. Not the way she had before, not tentative, not testing, but like she had nothing left to lose. Like Riley was the only thing worth fighting for. Riley kissed her back with equal desperation. And when they pulled away, breathing hard, eyes shining, they knew it wasn't over. The storm was still coming. But now, they would face it together. The headline dropped at 7:03 a.m. sharp. Riley Carter was already awake when her phone lit up. She didn't need to read the article to know what it said. She had read it the night before, sitting beside Addison in silence, her heart a bruised thing beating too loudly in her chest. Exclusive. The real Riley Carter. CEO's girlfriend, not who she claims to be. It didn't matter that most of it was exaggerated or ripped from context. It didn't matter that the therapy notes were confidential, the DUI had been dismissed, or that the so-called emotional instability the article hinted at had been nothing more than grief therapy after her sister's death. What mattered was that it was out there. Her pain, her past, her story, twisted and printed for the world to dissect. She should have been terrified. She should have been humiliated. But instead, she sat on the edge of Addison's bed, fingers curled around a mug she hadn't taken a sip from, and she waited. Waited to feel the shame. Waited to fall apart. But it didn't come. Not this time. Addison entered the room quietly, still in the robe she'd thrown on after a call with her legal team. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes were darker than usual. Stormy, haunted, but blazing with purpose. "It's out," she said simply. Riley nodded. "I saw. It's everywhere." "I know." Addison crossed the room and knelt in front of her, hands finding Riley's knees. "I'm so sorry." Riley set the mug down and touched Addison's face. "Don't be. I survived this once. I'll survive it again." Addison's jaw clenched. "You shouldn't have to. Not because of me. I'm not ashamed of who I am, or what I went through. And I'm sure as hell not ashamed of being with you." Addison looked up at her then, something raw breaking free in her gaze. "They're going to come after me next. And I don't care. But they'll keep using you until they get what they want. So stop letting them control the narrative," Riley said. "You own media. You own image. Use it." Addison stood slowly, her spine straightening, something shifting inside her. "You're right." "About what?" "That I've spent my whole life curating a version of me the world could digest.
Polished. Cold.
Infallible. But I'm done with that. If they want a story, I'll give them the truth." That afternoon, Addison Blake sent a press release to every major outlet in the country. Then she scheduled an interview, live, unfiltered, no advance questions. Her PR team begged her to reconsider. The board issued warnings. Sponsors threatened to pull back. She didn't care. The next morning, Addison sat across from a well-known journalist, cameras rolling, millions watching. Riley watched from the green room, heart pounding in her throat. "You've been called ruthless, calculating,
Brilliant. Cold, the host said.
Why break the silence now?" Addison looked directly into the camera. "Because silence isn't protection. It's a prison. And I'm tired of pretending." The host blinked. "Pretending?" "The relationship between me and Riley Carter began under complicated circumstances." "Yes, that's true. But what the media has twisted into manipulation or strategy was actually the beginning of something real. Something I didn't expect. Something I didn't deserve. But something I now refuse to hide." Riley's throat tightened. Addison continued, her voice unwavering. "Riley is the bravest person I know. She's survived things no one should have to survive. She's taught me more about strength than any boardroom ever did. And she didn't ask to be in the spotlight. I brought her into it. So, if anyone wants someone to blame, look at me. Not her. The host was silent for a moment, then leaned forward. Are you in love with her? Addison didn't flinch. Yes. The room went still. Cameras zoomed in. Hashtags exploded online. But Addison didn't look away. And I'm not afraid to say it. Not anymore. Riley stood just outside the camera's frame, tears in her eyes. This wasn't the woman the world thought they knew. This was her Addison. The woman who had shown up to Christmas Eve dinner nervous and hopeful. The woman who had kissed her like the world might end. The woman who had once been too afraid to love, and now stood on live television, choosing her. Choosing them. That night, the internet became a battlefield. Hashtag Team Addison trended globally. Support poured in activists, celebrities, ordinary women who had once been shamed for their pasts. But so did the hate. Conservative pundits called for Addison's resignation. Shareholders demanded an emergency board meeting. The war for public opinion had officially begun. And yet, Addison didn't hide. She stayed beside Riley, hand in hand, walking through the city, unapologetic. She declined offers to go silent. She posted a photo of them sitting on her couch in sweatpants, no makeup, mugs in hand, with the caption, no script. Just us. And still, the world kept demanding answers. And then came the invitation. The Winter Legacy Ball, Addison said, reading the email aloud. The most exclusive event of the season. Black tie. Global media coverage. And they've invited both of us. Because of the interview? Riley asked. Because now we're a statement, Addison said. They want to parade us like a trophy. The rebrand of power and softness. Cold CEO and redeemed girl next door. Are we going? Addison looked at her. Do you want to? Riley hesitated, then nodded. If we go, let's go as us. No act. No pretending. Addison reached for her hand. Then we go. As us. Riley Carter had never worn anything that shimmered like this. The floor-length black velvet gown hugged her body with an elegance that felt unreal, and the way Addison had looked at her when she stepped out of the changing room, like the earth had tilted slightly, was still imprinted on her skin. The Winter Legacy Ball was being held in a glass ballroom at the top of the Archer Hotel, one of the most exclusive venues in the city. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the skyline glittered in celebration, and the dance floor sparkled under soft golden chandeliers. It was the kind of night Riley had only ever seen in movies, and she was living it hand in hand with the woman who, 6 weeks ago, had stormed into her apartment with a red dress and a fake proposal. Now Addison stood beside her for real, in a deep burgundy gown with a plunging neckline and hair swept back in a way that made her look devastating and soft all at once. Cameras were already flashing when their car pulled up, and yet Addison didn't hesitate. She reached for Riley's hand, laced their fingers together, and walked them straight into the light. Inside, people turned. Conversations paused. This wasn't just two women entering a room. It was a declaration. A challenge. A promise. Are you okay? Addison murmured as they stepped into the ballroom, her voice low and private despite the public spotlight. No, Riley admitted. But I'm with you, so I will be. Addison's hand squeezed hers. The evening unfolded like a dream half-laced with anxiety. They greeted executives, smiled politely at socialites, dodged passive-aggressive compliments from influencers pretending to be journalists. But beneath it all, Riley could feel it. Addison was different tonight. Not because she was colder or more distant, but because she was focused. Grounded. Fiercely present. You've changed, Riley whispered as they danced, slow and close beneath the chandeliers. You're warmer. Addison looked at her with something unreadable and beautiful in her eyes. You did that to me. Riley couldn't respond. Not with words. So she leaned in and rested her head against Addison's shoulder, allowing herself to be held, to be seen. But just as Riley began to feel like she could breathe again, she felt Addison tense.
Subtly.
Almost imperceptibly. But it was there. A shift in posture. A flick of her gaze over Riley's shoulder. What is it? Riley asked quietly. Addison didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back from their dance, guiding Riley gently to the edge of the room. Stay here. I need a moment. Addison, please. Just trust me. Riley watched her disappear into the crowd, her silhouette a line of tension and purpose. Her heart pounded. Something was wrong. Addison didn't leave her side like this. Not anymore. She waited for 5 minutes. Then 10. She tried not to panic. She sipped champagne. She smiled at strangers. She pretended everything was fine. But when she caught sight of Addison speaking to a man near the far end of the room, tall, well-dressed, with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes, Riley knew something was very, very wrong. The man leaned in too close. Addison didn't flinch, but her arms were crossed, defensive. Riley made her way across the room slowly, carefully. She caught only the end of the conversation. You don't want this coming out, Addison. Trust me. Addison's voice was cold, measured. You don't get to threaten me anymore. You're forgetting how quickly the narrative turns. One misstep, and this perfect image you've built with your girlfriend?
Gone.
Leave. Think about what I said. The man walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Addison turned and nearly collided with Riley. Who was that? Riley asked, her voice low and sharp. An old investor, Addison said tightly. Someone I once made the mistake of trusting. What does he have on you? It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Addison met her gaze. It's not about me.
It's about you.
He said if I didn't walk away from all this, from you, he'd leak a story. About what? Addison hesitated. Something that could make the world think I was manipulating you from the beginning. Weren't you? Riley asked, not cruelly but honestly. At first,
yes.
And I regret every second of it. But this?
What we have now.
It's not strategy. It's not PR. It's the only real thing I've ever let myself have. So let him talk. Riley, no. I'm not letting some man scare you into hiding again. We made a choice to stop pretending. That means we don't get to retreat when it gets hard. Addison stared at her like she'd never seen her before. Like Riley wasn't the assistant anymore, or the girl in the red dress, or the fake girlfriend. She was something more. She was real. And then, in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by power and politics and 1,000 glittering eyes, Addison reached for her again. Not carefully, not cautiously, but openly, boldly. She pulled Riley into her arms, kissed her like the world had stopped turning, like no threats could touch them, like no version of the past could change what they had now. And the room went silent. Then came the clicks of cameras, the stir of voices, the chaos of attention. But Addison didn't let go. Not until Riley did. When they finally broke apart, Addison whispered, "No one's going to take this from me. Not again." "Good," Riley said, breathless. "Because I'm not going anywhere." Across the room, the man from Addison's past watched them with a cold smile. And he pulled out his phone. The video dropped just after midnight. No warning. No signature. Just a link sent to every major news outlet with a subject line, "The truth about Addison Blake and her girlfriend." By 1 a.m., it had been viewed 2 million times. By 2 a.m., Riley Carter had watched it. And by 2:06, she could no longer breathe. The footage was grainy, clipped together from different angles. Someone had clearly recorded it secretly. Addison, in her office, pacing in a black suit. A whiteboard in the background. A man's voice, probably the same one Riley saw at the gala, asking about strategy. "We need a distraction." Addison's voice echoed through the speakers. "Something that softens my image. Makes people forget the board is circling." "So, a romance?" someone else asked. "Something public. Maybe someone unexpected. Someone real. It'll feel authentic." "And you have someone in mind?" There was a pause. And then Addison again. "My assistant. Riley. She's smart, attractive, unassuming.
People will buy it."
She'd never sell a story. The video cut to laughter. A man saying, "This is perfect. She's exactly what the public wants." And finally, Addison, rubbing her temples, voice low, tight, and exhausted. "It's not like I'm going to fall for her." The video ended there. Riley didn't remember dropping her phone. She didn't remember sliding down the wall or curling her arms around her knees. She just remembered the sound of her own heartbeat, violent, broken, echoing in her ears like thunder. Addison had used her. Maybe not now. Maybe not recently. But at the beginning, it had been a choice. A strategy. A game. And Riley had played her part so perfectly, she hadn't seen it until it was too late. The knock came at 2:22 a.m. Addison. Of course it was her. Riley didn't answer. The door opened anyway. Addison's voice was sharp with panic. I came as soon as I saw it. She stopped when she saw Riley on the floor. Riley. Riley didn't look up. It was real, Addison said, stepping forward, her heels silent against the wood floor. It was a mistake, yes, but only at the beginning. I swear to God, everything changed. Don't. Riley's voice cracked like glass. Please don't lie to me. Not now. Addison sank to her knees. I'm not lying. You called me a distraction. That was before. You said people would buy it. I didn't know you. I didn't expect you to matter. And when did I start mattering, Addie? Riley finally looked at her, eyes red and full of fury and heartbreak. Was it before or after you let me fall in love with you? Addison's breath hitched. I didn't let you fall. I fell with you. Don't you dare. Riley stood, wiping her face. Don't you dare stand in this apartment and try to rewrite the timeline just because you finally grew a heart. I never meant to hurt you, but you did. Riley's voice rose. You took something sacred and turned it into a storyline. You packaged me. You presented me like I was part of a brand strategy. You kissed me on camera because it looked good, and now you want me to believe it ever meant anything at all?
It did.
It does. Then why does it feel like I'm just another deal you made? Addison was silent. You don't get to answer that, Riley said, voice trembling. Because I gave you everything. I brought you into my family. I let myself hope. And you were playing a role the whole time. I stopped playing a long time ago. But the damage is already done. Riley stepped back. I can't do this right now. I need space. Please don't walk away. I'm not walking, Riley said, grabbing her coat, voice so quiet Addison almost didn't hear. I'm surviving. And then she was gone. The door closed. The silence returned. And Addison Blake, for the first time in years, sat alone on the floor and cried. Addison Blake had never felt powerless in her life. She had faced media firestorms, boardroom ambushes, financial crashes, and personal betrayals. She had stared down grown men in $1,000 suits and walked out of meetings with empires in her back pocket. But nothing had prepared her for the silence that followed Riley walking out the door. It had been 3 days, 72 hours without a call, without a text, without a trace of the woman who had wrecked her carefully constructed world and rebuilt it from the inside out. Addison hadn't eaten, barely slept. She sat in her office while the company around her unraveled, board members demanding statements, the PR team begging for a scripted apology, the legal department warning her about investor lawsuits. But none of it mattered. Not anymore. The only thing Addison cared about had already left. And maybe she deserved that. No, she did deserve that. Because in the beginning, everything Riley accused her of had been true. The manipulation, the performance, the cold, calculated decision to use someone's trust and turn it into a shield for her own ambition. What Addison hadn't expected, what she hadn't wanted, was to fall in love for real. And when she had, it was already too late. Riley had given her everything: warmth, chaos, stubbornness, laughter. And Addison had met that gift with strategy. She didn't deserve forgiveness. But she needed the chance to ask for it. And she had no idea how. She stared at the phone in her hand for over an hour before dialing the number. Riley had mentioned it once, during the drive home from Christmas dinner, laughing softly. If you ever get lost, she'd said, call my mom. She always knows what to say. Addison had never forgotten that. And now, as the line rang, her hands shook. Hello, came the voice, familiar, warm, a little confused. Mrs. Carter. Addison said, her throat dry. This is Addison Blake. I need your help. There was a pause. Then a sigh. What did you do to my daughter? I broke her heart, Addison said honestly. And I don't know how to fix it. You start by being honest, Mrs. Carter said. Not with a press conference. Not with another polished apology. With something real. Something just for her. She won't answer my calls. Then you show up. Not as the CEO. Not as the woman with the plan. As the woman who loves her. Addison was quiet. Do you think she'll even want to see me again? I think, said Mrs. Carter gently, that if you love her like I think you do, you have to risk hearing no. That night, Addison made a decision. No cameras. No statements. No rehearsals. Just truth. And risk. And the one thing she had never dared to do before. Surrender. The next morning, Riley walked into her favorite bookstore on 8th and Delmar, the one she used to go to in college, when everything felt impossible and she needed to be reminded that stories could still have happy endings. She hadn't been there in months, but something had pulled her toward it. Maybe she just needed silence. Or memory. Or maybe she needed to remember who she was before all this began. But the moment she stepped inside, she froze. There was a display in the center of the store. Not a promotional table. Not a shelf of bestsellers. A single small table with a handwritten sign. For Riley. On it was a copy of Jane Austen's letters, the one she and Addison had joked about when inventing their fake backstory. A bouquet of lavender and eucalyptus. A small red velvet box. And a handwritten note. Riley picked it up with trembling hands. The card read, You once asked me when it changed. When you started to matter. The truth is, I don't know the exact moment. Maybe it was the night you made my mother laugh. Maybe it was the first time you didn't flinch when I pushed you away. Or maybe it was always you, and I was just too broken to see it. I lied when I said I wouldn't fall for you. I fell the second you smiled at me like I wasn't a project, or a brand, or a woman who needed fixing. I fell when you made me feel human. If this is the end, I'll understand. But if there's still a chance, I'll be waiting. No cameras. No press.
Just me.
At the place where we started pretending. The Gala ballroom. Tonight. 8 p.m. Riley stood there for a long time, unsure if she was breathing. The bookstore owner gave her a knowing smile. She came in here yesterday. Told me this was your favorite place. Said she needed it to be special. Whatever she did, she's trying. Riley nodded slowly. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was loud. That night, at 7:59 p.m., Riley stood outside the grand ballroom where the gala had first taken place. The lights were off, the entrance quiet. She hesitated, then stepped inside. Addison stood alone in the center of the room, under the same crystal chandelier where they'd once danced as liars. She wore no makeup, no designer gown, just jeans, a soft sweater, and the most terrified look Riley had ever seen on her face. You came, Addison whispered. Riley stepped closer, slowly. You remembered the bookstore. I remembered everything. This is a lot, Riley said, glancing at the empty room, the flickering candle Addison had placed on a small table, the string lights tangled above their heads. So am I, Addison said. I'm a lot. I'm complicated. I'm messy. But I'm not pretending anymore. I love you. And I'm sorry I ever gave you a reason to doubt it. Why here? Riley asked, her voice quieter now. Because this is where we started lying, Addison said. And I want this to be the place we start telling the truth. Riley stared at her, heart racing. I don't know if I can forget what I saw. I'm not asking you to forget, Addison said. I'm asking you to forgive. And maybe come back. Silence stretched. And then Riley stepped forward. 1 step.
2.
3. She stopped in front of Addison, so close their hands almost touched. I hate that you lied to me. So do I. And I don't trust easily. I know. Riley took a breath. But I still love you. Addison's breath caught. And when Riley reached for her hand, Addison nearly collapsed. They stood there, in the ballroom that had once been a stage, Now just a quiet place with two women trying to love each other in the wreckage of everything that had gone wrong. Addison leaned in, her forehead resting against Riley's. "You came back. You gave me a reason to." And this time, when they kissed, it wasn't part of any story. It was the beginning of something real. The morning after their reunion in the ballroom, Addison Blake woke up to the weight of Riley's hand resting against her chest, steady and warm. It was a simple touch, one that said, "I'm here." And it anchored her in a way nothing else had. But the peace was fragile, temporary. She knew it wouldn't last, because today was the day the board would vote. The question on the table wasn't just about her performance as CEO, it was about her judgment, her credibility, her ability to lead in the aftermath of the scandal that had painted her as manipulative and self-serving. The leaked video had shaken the company to its core. Her public declarations of love for Riley had earned support from some corners but sparked outrage in others. Investors were divided. The media was relentless. And the board? Ruthless. They didn't care that Addison had changed. They didn't care that the relationship was now real. All they saw was a liability. Addison slipped out of bed quietly, not wanting to wake Riley. She stood by the window in nothing but a robe, watching the city blink to life below. It had never looked colder. She had always believed that love and power couldn't coexist. That to hold on to one, you had to lose the other. And maybe that was still true. But if she had to choose again this time, she knew what mattered more. Behind her, she heard soft footsteps. Riley wrapped her arms around Addison's waist from behind, pressing her cheek between Addison's shoulder blades. "Today's the day," she whispered.
"Yeah."
"Are you ready?" "I don't know if I'll ever be ready to lose something I built from nothing." "Then don't go down quietly." Addison turned in her arms. "I thought you'd want me to walk away. Not if it means letting them turn you into a villain one last time. You're not who they say you are. And if they're going to take this from you, make sure they see who they're tearing down." Addison searched her eyes. "You still believe in me?" "More than anyone ever has." The board meeting was held in the largest conference room at Blake Corporation HQ, 12 members. One vote. Addison entered alone, dressed in a sharp navy suit, no makeup, hair pulled back tightly. The Addison Blake the board remembered. But something in her eyes was different now.
Softer. Real.
"Before we begin," the chairwoman said, "do you have anything you'd like to say, Ms. Blake?" Addison stood at the head of the table and looked each of them in the eye. "I built this company with strategy, ambition, and precision. But I also built it with vision. And right now, that vision is clouded by a single narrative. One mistake. One human moment. I won't deny what happened. I won't pretend I handled it all perfectly. But I will tell you this. Everything you've seen since that video leaked has been real. My relationship with Riley Carter was born from a poor decision, yes. But it became the most honest thing in my life." She paused. "I fell in love, not with an idea, or an image, or a solution, but with a person who saw the worst in me and stayed anyway. And if the price of keeping my position here is pretending that didn't happen, then you can have your company back. Because I won't apologize for loving her." Silence followed. Eyes narrowed. Pens tapped against tables. And then, unexpectedly, the door opened. Riley stepped in. The board stirred. The chairwoman frowned. "This is a closed." "Let her speak," Addison said. Riley didn't flinch. She walked to the front of the room and stood beside Addison, her voice steady. "I'm not here to defend her out of obligation. Or because she asked. She didn't even know I was coming. I'm here because I've watched the way this woman has changed. I was there the day she tried to let me go so I wouldn't get dragged through the fallout. I was there when she cried on the floor because she thought she'd lost everything, not her company, but her humanity. And I was there when she told the truth, publicly, not because it would fix her image, but because it might heal mine." Her voice trembled. "You can choose to fire her. You can strip her title. You can rewrite the narrative however you want. But you don't get to pretend she's a monster. Because I know who she is now. And so do all of you." The chairwoman cleared her throat. "Miss Carter, thank you. But this decision isn't about public image. It's about leadership. Then look at who she's become, Riley said. And ask yourselves if you've ever seen someone lead with this much humility. The board asked Addison and Riley to step out. They waited in silence in the hallway. Addison didn't speak. Neither did Riley. They just held hands. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Then the door opened. The chairwoman appeared, eyes unreadable. The board has voted. Addison stood. Riley squeezed her hand once before letting go. We've decided to retain your position as CEO, effective immediately. Addison's breath caught. However, the chairwoman continued, the company's direction must shift. Your leadership must reflect the transparency you now claim to value. There will be oversight and expectations. Addison nodded. Understood. The chairwoman glanced at Riley, then added, you have someone worth fighting for. Don't forget that next time you're in a boardroom. The meeting adjourned. Addison and Riley didn't speak until they were outside, walking into the cold afternoon sun. You came, Addison said finally. Riley smiled. You showed up for me. I figured it was time I returned the favor. They kept me because they saw what I saw. Addison stopped walking, turned to her. Thank you. For what? For saving me. In every way. Riley touched her cheek. We're not finished yet. Addison leaned in. Not even close. And they kissed again. Right there on the steps of Blake Corporation. Not for the press. Not for redemption. But for love. Riley Carter didn't think she'd ever love her birthday. For most of her life, it had been a quiet affair, calls from family, a takeout dinner, maybe a drink with friends if she wasn't buried in work. She wasn't the kind of person who expected grand gestures or cakes with her name in frosting. But this year felt different. It wasn't because of the gifts, or the setting, or even the woman currently standing in her kitchen in nothing but Addison Blake's button-down shirt, barefoot, humming off-key as she made pancakes. It was because, for the first time, Riley didn't feel like she was surviving her life. She was living it, loving her. Addison turned just as Riley leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes soft with something that felt dangerously like forever. Happy birthday, Addison said, a little breathless, flipping a pancake like it was the most important mission of her career. That smells incredible, Riley replied, patting across the floor until she could slip her arms around Addison's waist from behind. You never told me you could cook. I can't. But I watched 3 YouTube videos last night. Admit it. You panic Googled how to make pancakes for the woman you love. I did no such thing. Addie. Okay, yes. And I bought 3 kinds of syrup in case you were a maple purist. Riley laughed against her shoulder, kissing the bare skin there. This is already the best birthday I've ever had. Addison turned in her arms, wiping flour off Riley's cheek. You deserve magic. And I know I'm not always good at that, but I'm trying. You've always been good at the grand things. It's the small, quiet ones that mean the most to me. Like this? Addison asked, lifting a blueberry from the bowl and gently pressing it to Riley's lips. Emmett, Riley smiled. Like that. They ate at the kitchen island, barefoot, sharing pancakes and sipping coffee with hazelnut creamer Addison had bought because she remembered Riley liked it. There was no noise, no press, no chaos, just them. After breakfast, Addison disappeared for 20 minutes, telling Riley only, put on something comfortable, and don't come outside until I call you. Riley did as she was told, amused and curious. When the door finally opened, she stepped into the small rooftop terrace Addison had once insisted was too impractical to decorate. It had been transformed. String lights crisscrossed above their heads, delicate and warm. A blanket was spread out on the floor, covered in books, her books, favorite titles Riley had mentioned in passing. There was a bottle of wine, 2 glasses, and in the center a small black box. What is this? Riley whispered. A do-over, Addison said softly, taking her hand and leading her to sit. You never got a real first date. Not one without cameras or contracts. Not one where I just loved you the way I was supposed to from the beginning. Riley's throat tightened. Addie, so this is it, Addison continued. Our first real date. Our first slow afternoon. Our first moment that no one else gets to script. They sat there for hours, reading, laughing, trading stories. At one point, Riley curled into Addison's lap, book half open, fingers tangled in hers. The sun began to set, painting the city in gold and rose. Addison reached for the black box. I want to give you something. Riley straightened. Is it a ring? Not yet, Addison said with a smirk. I want to earn that moment, not skip ahead to it. She opened the box. Inside was a delicate bracelet, thin gold, with a single charm in the shape of a typewriter key. It's from the first article you ever edited for me, Addison said. The one you said made me sound less terrifying. I kept the hard copy. I circled that sentence. Riley touched the charm with shaking fingers. You remembered. I remember everything about you. Addison fastened the bracelet around Riley's wrist. This is a promise. That I'll never lie to you again. That you'll never have to wonder if you matter. And that no matter what the world throws at us, I'll always be on your side. Riley's eyes filled with tears. You already are. Addison leaned in, her lips brushing against Riley's with the kind of tenderness that shattered every wall Riley had ever built. Say it again, Addison whispered. That you love me. Riley smiled through tears. I love you. Even now. Especially now. Then stay. Forever. That night, they lay in bed wrapped in each other, skin to skin, breath to breath. Addison's head on Riley's chest. Riley's fingers tracing slow, lazy patterns along Addison's spine. The city moved outside their window. But inside, there was only peace. Only truth. Only the kind of love that was chosen again and again, not because it was easy, but because it was theirs. No more pretending. No more fear. Just Addison and Riley. And the life they'd build, one honest, beautiful day at a time. Thank you so much for being here and for believing in this channel. If you feel in your heart, you can donate with super thanks so I can focus more and more on this project. Your support helps me keep creating these love stories and bringing them to life for you. See you in the next video.